So you're telling me there's a chance. Oh, hi there. Welcome to Out of Turn, the YouTube series that combines board games and me. I'm Justin, your host. Thank you for tuning into part 5, the final installment of my top 50 board games of all time as of January 2021. This series is to introduce you guys to me and my tastes. And if you're not that familiar with board games, you can also see a whole bunch of recommendations. If you missed the other parts, you want to go back and watch them, you can find links to the playlist all around here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my top 10. Game number 10 is Horrified. This is a pretty recent cooperative game, meaning that all the players of the game are working as a team to beat the game rather than beat each other. And you can actually find it at places like Target. It's very easy to track down. Not to mention, it's got a very cool theme and very cool artwork. This is a game based on the classic Universal monsters, Frankenstein's monster, Dracula, Invisible Man, etc. And the premise of the game is a couple of these monsters, you can throw in whichever ones you like, are terrorizing a village, and each player is going to be working towards a shared goal of taking out these monsters and saving villagers. So the way the monsters are defeated is you'll be moving around the board collecting sets of items. They're basically color coded, but you're collecting sets and spending them at certain locations on the board as a way to defeat the monster. And each monster has a different way to defeat it. So there's, a little bit of variety in the gameplay. Also throughout the game, there will be villagers appearing, and you will have the added task of trying to transport them to safety. They all have little safe havens on the board that they want to be ushered to. So while all that's going on, in between player turns, monsters get turns as well, where they move closer to their nearest target and might even attack them. So you are actually in peril. You can get killed by a monster in this game. What's great about it is not too hard of a game to understand. It's a great family game. Again, the theme really brings people in, and you can adjust the difficulty. Start out the game with one or two monsters on the lower side of things. As you get your team's groove and figure out how to beat the game, you can up the complexity or difficulty, I should say, by adding more monsters. Or, there's even a Frankenstein's monster and the bride are two monsters for the price of one, and they are, doubling up on the terror in the game. So this is a lot of fun. It's a game that my group has asked for more than a lot of other games, which means they like it too. It's hard to go wrong with this one. Number 10, Horrified. Game number 9 is the second game on the countdown that begins with the letter Q, but it's not the last. It is QE. So QE is a bidding game, a blind bidding game, where the premise of the game is basically each player is playing as a country during the 2009 world economy collapse. A little dark, I suppose, but you are bailing out companies throughout the world. And basically, this is another type of set collection. So you're going to score points by getting, the same types of businesses or businesses from the same countries together. And you're bidding to bail them out. So the twist of this game is you can bid any amount of money because you are playing as a country and as its government, essentially. There's no limit to how much you can bid. But the player who bids the most throughout the game automatically loses. So you want to be aggressive and make sure that you're winning the businesses and scoring points, but you got to know where to draw the line, because if you spend the most, you flat out can't win the game. Also, when you're bidding, only one player in each round of bidding knows what everyone bid. So let's say it's my turn to hold the auction. I put a business out on the table. Everyone's going to secretly write down what their bid is and then hand it off to me. And I'm not going to tell anybody what the winning bid was. I'm just going to say who won. So John placed the highest bid. So everyone knows John bid the most, but they don't know what he bid. So it's an interesting meta game going on, because you know what you bid, it wasn't enough to beat John. And so those dollar amounts just keep going up and up through the game. But again, you got to find the ceiling so that you don't totally blow your chance of winning. It's really fun. This is quite a psychological game, but not I would say not really in a stressful way. It's pretty fun. I haven't played this game a lot. I can definitely tell you I'll be playing it a lot more in the future, but we've already had some laughs where, players are bidding hundreds of thousands of dollars, but come to find out at the end of the game, they'll have lost a bid only by $1 each. I don't know. It's just a very interesting dynamic that I have not seen in pretty much any other game I've played. That's why it made it all the way up to number 9 on my list, QE. For game number 8, we might as well stay on the Q train for Quirky Circuits. This is a game that combines a couple of recurring themes on my countdown. It's cooperative, so you're playing together, and it's a programming game. Just in case you missed that explanation in previous videos, programming is when you pick several of your turns or actions at once and then let them play out. In a competitive game, you're trying to figure out what's going to happen between one of your turns and the next. But in a cooperative programming game, you're basically trying to sync up with the other players mentally. In this game, you will be programming a cute little robot. There's a few different ones in the game. It depends on which scenario you're playing. And they've got an end goal on their map. And basically, each player has a hand of cards, and they're placing them face down in a communal line of programming, a programming sequence. And there's very limited information on the back of the card. You can see if it's a movement card, but you can't see if it's movement forwards or backwards or how many spaces it is. You can see it's a turn card, but you can't see if it's a turn left or turn right, or might even be a U-turn. So you're trying to figure out what you think the other players are doing to get the robot through the course and, collect items on the map and ultimately get to a finish line. So it's really fun to try to predict what your fellow players, what your team is doing. And like other programming games that I've talked about, it's really fun to watch a little bit of chaos unfold. This is a game that you really can't, or I should say shouldn't take seriously, because things are going to go off the rails, and you gotta kind of have to embrace that. In fact, when I play with my friends, they like to throw down more cards than are required to close out a round, because they figure, what the heck, maybe we did a good job and maybe we didn't. Let's just see what happens to the robot after that. And once the dust settles, we'll figure it out from there. Very silly game. It also really scales very well. You can, there's actually a book of scenarios that go from super easy to really difficult. So you can play this one with your family all the way up to a more hardcore gamer group. And it can present a challenge on any level. And challenge or no challenge, it's super fun. That's why it's at number 8 on the list. It's Quirky Circuits. Game number 7 is pretty much a pillar of modern gaming. It is Ticket to Ride. Now, I've played 3 editions of Ticket to Ride. There's tons of them out there, but I've played the original Ticket to Ride and Ticket to Ride Europe, which I think are great for a slightly higher player count, like 4 or 5 people. We also have Ticket to Ride London, which is a smaller, shorter version, which is good for 2 or 3 players. And I might add, I play it with my 10-year-old daughter. Granted, she can handle the bigger one, but I think the smaller one's good for a quicker, more casual game. So in Ticket to Ride, your board is a map, and the region may vary depending on which version you're playing, but it's populated with cities or locations. And your goal in the game is to collect sets of cards, sets meaning all cards of the same color, that you can cash in to create connections between locations on the board. And the reason you're doing that is because you're trying to fulfill tickets. Now, the tickets could be short. They could be just 2 or 3 cities apart for a few points, or they could be pretty ambitious. We could be talking connecting one corner of the board to the other for 20 points. Now, you can choose which tickets. You'll grab a few and decide which tickets you want to pursue. The interesting thing here is the tickets that you don't complete by the end of the game turn into negative points. So you can try to amass a whole bunch of little tickets and nickel and dime your points that way, or you can go big. and hope that you can score something awesome. This is a game that I can recommend to pretty much anyone. The mechanics of the game are very simple. I think you can explain this game in under 5 minutes. Just because it's simple, though, doesn't mean that there's not a lot there to sink your teeth into. And it can be a little cutthroat. If your ticket depends on connecting these two cities here in the middle and someone gets to them first, you may have to build a route around, and it really throws a wrench in your plans. So again, it's a game that I honestly think could and probably should be in every person's collection that wants to play games on at least a semi-regular basis. You can bust it out with your family. You can bust it out with your friends. Pretty much everyone likes number 7 on the list here, Ticket to Ride. Number 6 is King Domino. And I gotta say, this is one of the most streamlined, simple games, yet one that I just keep coming back to. The way it works is you are building a little kingdom in front of you, each player is, a little square grid. And the way you're doing that is by drafting these dominoes that are kind of split into 2 sections, and they have different types of land on them. They could be fields, water, forest, whatever. And you're placing them in your grid, and the only limitation you have is that one side of your new domino has to connect with a matching land type in your grid. So they don't have to both match if you're plopping them in between 2, but as long as one side matches, you're good. And so by the end of the game, you're going to score points by each little land region you've created. And so you're going to take the size of the land region, which is how many squares that it takes up, and multiply it by the number of crowns in the region. A lot of the dominoes have crowns on them. So you could find yourself in a position where you've created like a whole quarter of your kingdom as forest. But if you didn't manage to get any forest tiles with crowns on them, you're out of luck point-wise. Conversely, you could just have a small little forest of 4, 5, 6 squares. But if you manage to get 2 or 3 crowns in them, boom, that's a ton of points. So that's pretty much it. There's only a couple of things to keep in mind as you're creating your kingdom. You want to try to group the same kind of land together, but you also want to be on the lookout for crowns. It's, again, very simple. Another game that's very easy to bring out to new people. You can teach it in just a couple of minutes. But I got to tell you, I play this game with my friends a lot, and we get very competitive. And this is a game that one of the games we're maybe the most addicted to. It's a game that we can play a couple times in a row and just be thirsty for more. It's that good. I highly recommend it. That's why it's so high on my list, of course. It's King Domino. All right, we've hit the top 5. Number 5 is a game I've only played once, but I cannot wait to sink my teeth into it more. It's Aquatica. So Aquatica is a beautiful game about exploring the ocean depths, all these underwater kingdoms. And the way it works is essentially you've got a hand of cards that are different characters that do different actions. And you're going to play one, and then you might be doing some more actions on your turn. So you're wanting to get ocean locations to your individual player board. And these locations have levels of abilities or resources on them. So essentially, once you tuck a location into a slot on your game board, you're going to have visible sort of the top thing that card lets you do. And so as you complete an action on a location, you're going to slide it up, hide the action that you just performed, and then that card's going to grant you a different action. So on one action, it may allow you to purchase a new location. And then once you complete that and slide it up, now it's giving you 3 coins. I'm just making those up off the cuff, but you get the idea. So the more you use those cards, the more things they give you to do. And then once you completely use it up, turns into victory points. So this is a game where you can really map out a master turn as you look at your options. Say, okay, if I do that, then I get this ability now, and I can do that, and then I can use that ability on this other card, and you can really do a master stroke turn. I'm into that kind of stuff. This is one of the thinkier games that I've played recently and possibly ever. Not to say that it's a really difficult game to understand, but it is certainly a game that lets you stretch your strategic muscles in a way that really just checks some boxes for me. That's why even with one play, it's become number 5 on my top 50 board games of all time. The name of the game is Aquatica. Number 4 is a very cool and gorgeous game called Raptor. This is a 2-player only game in which one person will play as a mother raptor and her babies, and the other raptor will play as a group of scientists trying to catch some of those baby raptors for research purposes. And this game has a very cool mechanism that I enjoy quite a bit. So each player's got a deck of cards numbered up to 9. And those cards also have unique abilities on them. So you're going to have 3 of those cards in your hand, and you're going to pick one. Let's say I pick the card that has the 7 on it, and my opponent picks their card with the 3, and we've revealed them at the same time. And so what happens is the player with the lower number, so my opponent with the 3, gets to take the action on their card. So it's going to be a neat, unique action. And so now, as the person who won this round, I get to take a number of actions that's the difference. So they played a 3, I played a 7. I now get to take 4 actions, and I've got a list of actions that I can take, and so do they. But I get to take 4 of them since that's the difference. And the object of the game is the Raptor team wants to move 3 of their baby raptors off the board into safety. And the scientist wants to try to catch 3 of the raptors for their research. Man, I like a lot of 2-player games. I play them with my girlfriend a lot. And this was a game that immediately captured us. Halfway through our first play, we had that spark in our eye, like, wow, this game is for us. And then I also played it with my best friend, who by the end of the first game was like, okay, yeah, I get this now, and I want to play again. And so those are the only 2 people I played it with, but both of those people, we immediately wanted to play again. We wanted to play as the other team. And it's gotten to the table a few times, and it's such a joy. I love it a lot. Number 4 on my list, Raptor. Number 3 is another beautiful game with a very cool mechanism at the heart of it, Solenia. So in Solenia, there is a central board that's made up of, I'll call them tiles, but there's these sort of V-shaped tiles that basically lay out a landscape that this airship is traveling across. And some of it is daytime and some of it is nighttime. And it matters because this airship is collecting resources and then compiling them to create orders to deliver out to cities on this landscape. And some of them are daytime only, some of them are nighttime only. But the way it works is, over the course of the game, the tile at the end of the play area is going to get flipped and added to the beginning. So that's how it simulates travel from night and day and night and day. And as the tiles at the end come off, anything that you put on the board there also comes off and gives you a little reward. So, you're playing off of the airship to collect resources and to make deliveries. And then as the tiles come off, you're collecting more stuff in the process, collecting victory points. It's not as complicated as it sounds, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a game that once you take 1 or 2 turns, you really understand what's going on. It's another game that I very recently discovered and started playing with my girlfriend and daughter. And it's one that we immediately wanted to play again because, the more you play it, the more you feel like you're going to get better at it. And, when it comes to games that are just a matter of collecting resources to complete orders, or, there's a million games out there that do that. But this, I think, has a pretty neat, unique twist on that. And that's why I hold it higher than so many other of those games. That's why it's number 3 on my list. Check it out, Solenia. Number 2 is my favorite strategic game and my favorite 2-player only game. It's Targi. Boy, did I fall in love with this game very hard from the first play. Really cool game. So the way it works is there is essentially a grid of cards out in front of the 2 players with sort of an outer rim, I'll call it, with the frame. And what you're doing is you're going to be placing pieces on the outer frame. You go back and forth placing the pieces. And once all of your pieces are placed, then you get to take some actions and take some cards. And you'll get to take where you place the pieces are cards that you're able to utilize, but also where they intersect in that grid. The cards that they intersect at, you'll also be able to utilize. And some of these cards are resources. Some of these cards are scoring conditions. Some of these cards are locations, sort of, that you're going to put in your own personal grid, and you'll score points based on how you fill out your personal grid as well. Let me tell you, that's about as much as I can describe the game without just, I have a very visceral feeling because this is a game that just tickles my brain so much. I might be the only game that I've gone so far as to go on a website, Board Game Arena, and play this game with strangers because I was just that hard up to play it again. But everyone I've introduced it to, I've played it with a handful of my friends and with my girlfriend. Everyone I played it with has really loved it too. It really is a game that has gotten under our skin, but me the most. It's a very thinky game where it's very cutthroat as well. Man, it's a game that'll make you mad and make you mad that your opponent blocked something that you've been building 3 turns for. But then you'll also really, really celebrate when something that you've been strategizing that long pays off. Man, this is a game that it's juicy and I love it. It's number 2. It's Targi. Well, here we are, game number 1. And it might be a surprising one. It's Time Stories. Let me tell you, folks, I know there's some baggage with Time Stories in the board gaming hobby community. I don't care. This is a game that absolutely blew my mind and blew my game group's mind. I'm telling you, it opened up what gaming could be for us. And we're maybe a third of the way through all the individual stories, but we are not deterred. We are very happy with it. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a cooperative game where you work at a time travel agency. And there are several scenarios that you can play through the game. It comes with one, and then you can purchase more and play through them. And you're basically sent to a different time period to more or less go through an adventure, solve a series of puzzles. It's part escape room, part point and click game. There's a little bit of everything in there. And the artwork's beautiful. So you go to a location, and the location is basically you lay out a series of cards that create a sort of a panoramic landscape, and each player can choose a card to explore. So they'll take that card and look at the back of it, and they could maybe they found an item, maybe they found a clue that's part of the larger narrative that you're trying to crack. Maybe they encountered a an oath that they have to fight. There's some dice chucking in this game. There's some, skill tests, combat, all that kind of stuff. And what's cool is every scenario, you're going to play through it at least 2 or 3 times because you learn stuff. You learn where to go and where not to go. And then you start over again and you play through it a little bit better. And there's been 1 or 2 of the scenarios where we've beaten them and we know that we left some stones unturned and we've been tempted to go back and play through them again, even though we've solved them. We want to see what we missed. So this is a game that packs a lot of story. It packs a lot of puzzly aspects. It packs a lot of teamwork. It's the kind of game you could really lose time. I mean, we easily play, have these sessions that last more than a couple of hours and we don't even feel it. And oftentimes we want to, if we didn't succeed, we want to start over and right on the spot and try it again. I've yet to play a game that offers more as an overall experience than Time Stories. Keep in mind, I've not played every game. I've not even played every game that's behind me. But so far in my infantile career, Time Stories is my number 1 game of all time. There it is, folks. We did it. We counted down my top 50 games of all time as of January 2021. So what's next? I'm going to be posting a couple of videos every month. I'll have a monthly video where I recap the games I played the previous month. So I'll be recapping my January activity pretty soon. I'll also do some more lists. I think the next list that I have coming up is Board Gaming on a Budget. That's where I'm going to talk about some of my favorite games that you can buy for under $20. That's great for those of you who are new or even just curious about the hobby. It maybe seems a little intimidating or expensive. It certainly can be, but I'm going to walk you through some games that you can try out without breaking the bank. But as for now, that's it for this series. I hope you liked it. I've just talked about 50 games. How many of these games have you played? How many of them do you like? How many of them do you hate? Did any of these just jump out at you as games that made you really curious and intrigued to try out? I want to hear all of your thoughts. I want to hear all of them. Every single one of them. Just put them down in the comments. Trust me, I'm not doing anything. I'm going to read it. I'm probably even going to reply to it. But thanks for going on this journey with me. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe if you haven't already so you can see what other shenanigans I get into next. I'm hoping to have a special guest or 2 for you guys in the near future as well. But until next time, I'm Justin. This is Out of Turn. See you later.